All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to show you what is behind this workflow here in n8n, and I'm going to show you how you can go viral with AI-generated content on YouTube and how you can create, as a little example, something like this. This is a simple setup, but you can easily learn the most basic workflow for generating content in an automated way that is constantly, daily posting to YouTube with you as the quality control so that you can say what you really want to post and what not. In this case, we're going with some text generated content, but you can easily just plug in HeyGen or any other avatar tool to turn this into a script for a HeyGen avatar. So let me actually show you what we have in here and what that does. Now, in order to make it simple, a little simpler for you, I've created this nice Claude artifact. And what we see here in the first thing is we have a few types of nodes and a few types of steps, right? We have a trigger, we have some data processing where not so much AI is a part of the whole thing, which is important because it shows you that AI is not the one main thing here, but it's actually the whole data processing. AI comes in a few steps. Then we have the human approval, and then we have the output and the upload steps. So as you can see here, only in a few steps is there AI really involved, right? So we're going from here to here, and then from here to here, because those are basically 2 or 3 different steps. So this is the first one. We have a scheduled trigger. So that scheduled trigger runs twice a day, in the mornings and the afternoons, and basically takes a look at the news from the day or from the half a day that has passed, right? Because we want to be updated, and that could be AI news, that could be anything for your niche or for your client or customer that you want to create content for. And what it first does, it takes some rows from a sheet. So we have a Google sheet here set up with dates and with certain content from the past that is being stored here because we want to make sure that we don't produce duplicated content, because our customers and our viewers wouldn't be too happy if we would present them with duplicated content all the time. So we need to have some sort of mechanism in place, which is in this case a Google Sheet that has a storage of the past videos, and it shows what has been produced in the past, and it makes sure in the further process of the workflow that we're not producing the same thing again. And it has a limiter, so we only take a look at the last 20 ones and not all of the list that might be pretty long in the Google storage after a while, because probably it wouldn't generate news anyways from stuff that is old. So that's the first part. And then we go into aggregating the titles that we have taken from the sheets and combining them to input into the prompt that we're going to give. In this case, we're going to give it to Perplexity, right? And that prompt should first take into account that, hey, generate us new content, but don't produce content about the stuff that we have already in this list here. So we produce the prompt, we then send the prompt, in this case, to Perplexity Deep Research. And from Perplexity Deep Research, we then go into taking the results, which are probably going to be like 10, 20, or what results are going to come out of Perplexity, whatever has happened throughout the day. So probably on the weekends, a little less, but throughout the week, it's a little more. And then we're going to filter with GPT-5 in this case what is important and what are really the 1 or 2 stories that we want to dive into. And then it's formatting this whole result for Discord, and it's sending us a message in Discord so that we can then approve or decline what has been generated, what the idea was that could then be put into a YouTube video. And if it's approved, then we deconstruct the list, and then we have a loop over item that I'm going to show you in a second, and then it goes into the actual rendering process. So that rendering process is where ShotStack API comes in. ShotStack is a cool tool that you can use if you want to generate content in a similar fashion as you would do with Canva for designs. And in this case, it is for it pretty much provides the template with simple channels where you can say, hey, where should different elements go? And then it just fills those elements, the placeholders and the variables it has with the content that you provided from your automated workflow. And then we needed a certain delay, a wait node, because producing the video takes a little time, and we need to fetch the finished video. And again, if the video is ready, we need to have a human in the loop process in place, a quality control, seeing quickly, is that content as we expected it to be? Do we really want to push that to our YouTube channel now? And only if it's approved, then we need to convert it into a binary file, because the URL that's coming out of ShotStack is not binary, but YouTube needs binary, which is just some sort of all things media-wise are binary files. And once we've converted it, it goes up to YouTube. And then in the last step, we need to append, put another row to our initial sheet that we started with here, right? So that is the whole setup in the beginning. Now let me actually show you how this looks like in n8n, which looks a little different, but you will recognize the steps that we have just gone through. So we have this schedule trigger where you have the, let me get you out of the way here, where we have this setting that the trigger is set to days. Yeah, you could also do that week-wise if you have another cadence, another frequency that you want your viewers to see this. Yeah, if you don't want to do daily videos or something, but weekly videos, do that. But you need a trigger node, right? The trigger node is just the schedule. In this case, you have the schedule trigger, and that's what you have here. The next thing is that we have that Google Sheet in here, and that Google Sheet node is connected to my Google Sheet account. So what you're going to see is when you start this, then you will need to create a Google Sheet API. So you're going to click on sign in with your Google as an OAuth connection, which makes sure that your workflow here can get the data out of your Google Sheet, but only to a certain scope. So it's not having access to everything if you don't provide the scope, because you may have personal stuff on there, you may have different projects on there. So if you wanna have only a certain scope, a certain amount of data in here, that's where you can limit that. Now you would set up your sign in here again, choose your connection, and we're gonna have a different video if you have questions about that. I'm gonna skip that point for now. Say, hey, you got your Google Sheet set up. Now you want to have the resource as a sheet within a document. Yeah, so we need to tell it what document is it. So this document just has the name storage 1 shorts 1, and that is pretty much what you will see in here. So you will have a list with all the different documents you have in your Google Drive folder, and you want to only take the first list or table, the first sheet in here. So when we have that, we have said we need the limiter, because the limiter makes sure that we only take the last 20 items of that list into account. So we use the limit node, yeah? And you can just search for limit node, and it restricts the number of items that are passed forward. It's not getting too messy afterwards, right? Now, when we have those 20 items, then we want to aggregate them, because we want to send them to the prompt, and that's where the aggregate node comes in, right? So that aggregate node takes the individual fields that we've had so far, and it takes them as a title, and it outputs them as an all titles variable, right? So that is the variable that's taking all the output data from the limit node, and it combines them to a long list, and that goes into the prompt. Now the prompt is taking the whole content from the aggregate node, and we mapped it manually, so it's not set up as a JSON in this case, it's set up manually, and we gave it a very long prompt that you can use. We're going to provide all the source files in our free school community. So if you want to take this, no problem, just take a look underneath the video. There is the description. You can take that, or you come up with your own, and we're going to have another video on how to get to good prompts in particular. But for this task here, we're giving the AI first a role. Yeah, what's the role? You're a AI news researcher. Then a certain task, like what it is that we're gonna look at, and then we go into some of the specifics. Yeah, you need to have some specifications of what is it actually that makes a good result, and what is it that makes not a good result. So this is basically what is a good result. Yeah. So we need to define what the audience is. We need to say what we want as a result, because there is a lot of stuff about AI, new laws in place that might not be of interest for our target group, and we need to exclude them. But that's not what we're going to do here. We're actually going to go and have the different specifications of the positive ones, just as with keywords. When you do Google Ads or something, like you have the positive keywords and you also have negative keywords, like what not to include. So in our case here, no AI regulation, legal developments, policy changes, all that boring stuff, all right? And then it gives us, we give it a simple example output, like how could it look like, what would a good result look like. And then we also include the list of previously published posts that we have just come up with. And that's basically the result. And you can see over here that this is the parameter, the variable that has now been filled with the list that we just created. You can see how it would look, right? So that's this step. And now this prompt goes into Perplexity Research, which is actually pretty simple, because here nothing really happens except for taking that prompt here and going into some of the models. In our case, we're going to choose Sonar Deep Research, because Sonar Deep Research for Perplexity is one of the state-of-the-art deep research models. So that is a good combination between the speed in which it produces the outcomes, the depth of the research, the quality of the research, the price of the whole research. So that's that. Yeah. So we only have a Perplexity account in here. So if you don't have one yet, go over to Perplexity, pull in your API key that you can have that in here, right? So that's just Perplexity AI. You create your API key, you put it in here, and you choose message a model, choose the model, as we said, Sonar Deep Research, put in the prompt here, and then we go. And once we execute this, it goes over to the next step. Now, the next step is going to be necessary for filtering out what the different results have given us. We're gonna get a whole lot of news from the day, as we discussed earlier when we took a look at the wireframe here. And we want GPT-5 with a good reasoning and to basically say, hey, which of these are the best? Okay, and only give us the best. So you want to choose a model here in this case that is a little more deeper into the reasoning, because if you compromise the quality here and you choose a cheaper model like GPT-5 Nano or Mini, it could be faster, but you could compromise on quality. So in this case, we chose this. And again, since in this case we use OpenAI, we set up a new AI credential. You can use any other model, of course, so I'm just giving you my reasoning why we chose this one. Whoops. And now in this case, again, we give it the role of not a researcher anymore, but in this case, it's the news editor. And you'll be provided with researched AI news from Perplexity, and the input may include comments, thought process, and so on. And we just want to focus on 2 news items. Like we want to post like 2 things in the morning, 2 things in the afternoon, and your task is to extract the titles and the descriptions, to format it, and that is very important, into JSON arrays, because only when we have it in JSON, we can then in the next step bring that out and send it to Discord for us to approve in the human in the loop process. And it needs again to get told that it shouldn't produce content that it made up. Yeah, it should only take the stuff that has been provided from the previous notes, and we should not again include anything that has been previously produced. So again, here we have the second net if the first one fails, right? We give it a little formatting rule, which means, hey, provide a title that has 8 to 10 words, and for our news to look good, it should have a certain length. Otherwise, we're going to have problem because we don't get this on one page. So that is what we do here. And that's what the OpenAI messenger model node does, which then goes in a code node. And that code node is probably the one thing that you hate because maybe you're not a coder, neither am I. What we usually do in this case is, and we're going to dive into this in another video in a little more detail, what you're gonna do to get the code like this is you're gonna do a little overview of your workflow that you've created until that point, yeah, and you're gonna screenshot it. And you're going to say, this is my process up until here. Yeah? And you're going to go to, let's say in this case, Claude AI. And you're going to give Claude AI just the screenshot. And you're going to go back into your workflow here again. And you're going to take the filter. And let's execute this actually. So we can work with a few things. Let me see what went wrong here. Okay, I think I know what the problem is. That's actually a good thing because it's probably going to happen to you too. What happened basically at the moment when I showed you that you could set up your new Google Sheet, it switched to number 4. So we're probably going to be fine if we choose number 3 here and execute it again and see what happens. And now, as you can see, it runs, right? Some steps go pretty quickly and other ones go pretty slowly, like the Perplexity research, especially the deep research sonar, is taking quite some time. So it's good if that runs in the background because you're not going to ever see this once it's set up, because the only thing you're going to see is at 4 p.m. in the afternoon or 9 p.m. in the morning, you're going to get this little notification on your smartphone or on your Discord web app, and it's going to tell you, hey, I've done the work. Now please tell me I can move forward if it suits your quality expectations, right? We'll wait a second until this step finishes and I'll come back here. All right, so the Perplexity research node is finished. Yeah, so we have 17 different citations in here, which is great, like 17 news. And now the OpenAI node is running and filtering through what makes sense for us and what doesn't. And as I said, here in this code node, the thing that you can do is you provide Claude an overview of your workflow. And in the next step, you show Claude what the filter, like the previous and the next node, are inputting and outputting. So what does the code node need to work with? That is what you get as an output. So you take an output from the previous node and you say, hey, Claude, this is the output. And it's going to know what this is because it says output up here. And you can then go and say, hey, and this is the next node, which is a Discord node. Yeah. So again, just go in here, add a Discord node and say, hey, this is the send a message, and you give it the input that it receives, and you say, okay, what needs to happen? What needs to happen for this to work? Yeah, you set up basically like a channel, especially for this. So you go into your Discord, you set up a channel for where should this message go. And since we don't really know what the code is, we just give that to Claude and we say, hey, yeah, ideally you dictate it. So let's delete this here. I give you the input and output of a code node basically within my n8n workflow, and I want you to come up with the code that needs to go into the code node in order for us to take the output from the previous node and format it in such a way that it gives us the right result when we want to have a Discord node where we need to approve the news that has been output from the previous node. Yeah, and it doesn't really matter if there are any grammar issues and stuff, because it's probably gonna understand anyways what we need. And what you're gonna get then is the output here, and you do a little debugging afterwards. So this code here looks a little different to the one that we eventually used in the code node here, but don't bother, because what you're going to do is you put that in here. Even if it doesn't work directly, you're going to get some output, you're going to get some error, And most of the time, probably what it's going to create, it's going to create some output that isn't really in the right format. Probably Discord doesn't really know what it needs to take, like the formatted news here. And once we've run this, it doesn't give us the right correct output here. So if we, for example, look in our Discord node, now this has run, yeah. So it's 2:14, 2:13, and at 2:10 this ran. But for example, like we had a couple runs before where it said requesting approval, but it didn't say anything because we ran it and it didn't include the actual formatted news. Yeah, it only gave us the approval and no content. So in order for us to have an approval in Discord, we need to have a approval process set in place here. So it's not a free text or custom form. So it's an approval, and it's just an approve or disapprove process. We say what needs to go into the approve button, into the disapprove button. And that's exactly what we're going to see here. And that's exactly what you're going to get every time you need to approve what needs to be produced. Like what's going on in your channel. And so this is the text, this is the title, and this is the body text. And you can see if that makes sense, if that's something that you find interesting and you think it's worthwhile for your viewers to share and to watch. So as you can see, up until here, you see all these little check marks because those have already run. Now, if I go here and I say, hey, approve this, what's going to happen is it's going to say, hey, got it, thank you. And within our process, now all of a sudden, whoops, we are here, yeah? Because now what happens is we have an if node. The if node makes sure that if the data is approved, then we move forward, yeah? So we have in every if node, you have a true and a false Boolean, which means like an either or process setup. So if it's true, then we can move forward. If it's not true, then you can see there's this little connection here to the get row in sheet, because then we need to go back into the beginning and kind of start the whole process over again to produce new content and new content ideas. If we just say, hey, sorry, but the content that you generated was too close to what we had before, go back to the Google Sheet, take a look at it again, and go through the whole process of ideation again and give it to me as an approval again, right? But then once I'm happy, now we can say, hey, now we gotta reconstruct the original data, right? So it takes the original data, and in this case, it takes it from the format data code node. Yeah, so this is the code node, and you can see the name of the data, the name of the node is exactly what's in here, because this is just how it's formatted in JSON format. So it needs to have this little addition if it's not the previous node. So in many cases, you don't need to have this. If it's the previous node, yeah, because it's the if node, then n8n knows directly, hey, this is from the last node. But if it's a previous node, then we need to tell it, hey, it's from this node. And it takes the direct name from that node as a descriptor. And then we need to tell it, hey, give out the array, the list that you've had, that you send out, those two items on the list, and make them two items again. Yeah, so get rid of that list again and give out two items. And now we give it a loop over items node, and that loop over items node makes sure that we process these one by one. So we have a loop over item. Yeah, you find that if you just enter loop over items, yeah, split in batches. That's this one. And the way it's going to look is loop over items. So the way it's going to look is it's going to look like this. Yeah. So you have this symbol, and it's fine. And you're going to have this replace me thing, and you can just delete that and delete this and set up whatever needs to go in this circle, in this loop that needs to be worked with, basically. In our case, we take the batch size, which means for how many things should that loop work, and that loop should work for a batch size of 1. Yeah, and it shows us, hey, we have 2 items in here, which means, hey, our previous step of deconstructing the array has worked. Yeah, so now we have 2 items, and for these 2 items, it should do the following. It should send the content to ShotStack, right? And we have looked at ShotStack before, so this is ShotStack again, and it knows now that a ShotStack, which has our API, so we've set up a ShotStack API, which just create your own account in ShotStack, sorry, yeah, and you set up a new API key. And then what you're going to get is you can set the title, the description to go into your ShotStack account, right? So we have, in this case, a HTTP request node, and that HTTP request node means nothing different, but it sends some data out that we've created here and tells ShotStack to do something with it through the ShotStack API. And since we want ShotStack to do something and not get something in the first case, the method we're going to choose here is a post method, right? So in this case, like, you will find this, let me zoom out, let me zoom out here. Yeah, so what you're going to use is the HTTP request node. Yeah, and it's going to look like this in the beginning, and you choose the post method, right? And now it needs some authentication, it needs the URL and stuff, and that's exactly what we're going to give it. So I delete this, and we're going to give it the credentials. In this case, it's a header auth. Yeah, that is what ShotStack provides. Now, ShotStack will tell you what it needs in order to work. So in this case, it's a header auth. Yeah, you can have a bearer and a basic auth, but just copy and paste it for now if you're new to the whole process, and you put in your ShotStack credentials. If you haven't created those credentials yet, so haven't put your API into n8n so it knows what to do that in that case. And then we sent over the header so it knows what to do. So it's a content type, is a JSON that it's going to get, and this is the body that goes in, right? And that body basically tells ShotStack what to do with the content it just received. Yeah, so it gets the title, it gets the description, and it gets a date, because that is exactly what we in this case tell it to take and show on the show in the video, right? It gets the title, the description, and the date. And the breaking up here stays the same. The little note here stays the same. The background stays the same. We only want to fill those fields here. And then this is, again, ShotStack tells you how it needs the input in the ShotStack docs. So if you go to ShotStack API docs or documentation, it tells you how the authentication needs to go, how the editing needs to go, and it tells you in which different format this could and should go in and out, right? So for our case here right now, just stick with the version that we have in here. Again, if you want the full overview, take a look at our description, because join our school community to take a look at what the source files are here, right? So once we've done that, we've sent these information to ShotStack. Now we want to see that ShotStack creates the video, and we want to fetch that video, right? But it's going to take a moment, so we have a wait node. So the next thing we enter here is a wait node, and set it to 30 seconds. We could set it to any other time frame, but 30 seconds is about right here. And it's going to take about 30 seconds to produce the video. Then we fetch the video, right? In this case, since we want to get something out of ShotStack, now we have another HTTP request node, which is a get node, right? So now in this case, we don't have a post node, we have a get node. Yeah, and this is the endpoint and not the endpoint. This is the URL that ShotStack gives you. That is the response from, hey, I'm finished now, here's your video. So this is what ShotStack gives you. So don't worry now, like, where do I get this from? So again, it needs to log in here. It needs to take the headers, the format as a JSON, and now it should have another if node, because if it's not finished yet, so if the message is, hey, my status here is not, I'm finished, then repeat the whole process, go through the wait node again, and whoops, come out here again. Yeah, take another 30 seconds, see if the video's been produced correctly and if it's come out correctly, and then go and see what the URL is, if the status is good, right? So if the status comes out, hey, it's good, now you can again go into the Discord request the approval, because now we're going to have another approval here, as we can see, yeah. So first we got the approval for the, hey, the text is good, and now we got the approval for how does the finished product actually look like. Yeah, if we like it, which in this case we do, we can say, okay, approve. And again, it says, fine, then I will go to work. And what it does now, if it takes a look at, hey, if it's true, if it's approved, then it takes the URL that we're gonna get from ShotStack and it turns it into a binary, right? So it takes that URL up here and it turns that through the options here and creates as an output response format data. Yeah, and what we're going to see then is the output is data, and that is exactly what you can see here. This is exactly the video that we just saw when we took a look at Discord, and that is the file format that YouTube can work with. Yeah, so if we have I think that's the YouTube node in this case here. We have the YouTube, and it's the create a video. Let me see, what is it? Which one is it? I think it's the create a video one, update a video, upload a video in this case, sorry. We have the upload a video node, and it takes the title that we've set before. Yeah, in this case, we use the title that we had before. We set it to a certain country code if we want to, give it a certain category name that we want to, and so on and so forth. Again, you may need to set up your YouTube API or Google API in order to upload this. We're going to make another video on this. It's a very straightforward point. So you basically only go to your Google console. What is this? Yeah, console, iCloud, not iCloud, sorry, Google. And you're going to set up a new project in here for the different tools that you have, for the different projects that you're going to work on. And up here, you basically only look for YouTube. Whoops. Yeah, and it's going to give you the YouTube data API. It's going to have the option to set this on, yeah, so enable it. And by doing that, you can then reference this in your workflows here. So there are one or two steps more that we're going to, again, dive into in another video. Now for this one, just take it for what it is, right? So we have the description in here that might go into the YouTube upload as well. So that it has some text in here, which could be the text of the script basically, and then it's uploaded. And the last thing that we're going to do is we got to append another row to the sheet, because now we have created that new video, right? So basically the last one we should have in here is exactly what we have just created, and it's in here. So we just said, hey, take the same file as we have had on the top, yeah, and the values that you should send are send the date, yeah, the date that we've created. So this is just the format for today, yeah? And give it the title. Again, that title is from the loop over items, yeah. So it took those from here. Entropic brings blah blah blah, and the description. Take also the URL to the finished video and the YouTube link. So all this stuff goes in here in the storage. So if we were either from a machine perspective or from a human perspective to be looking at the results later, everybody can understand this. You can have this understand by a machine through JSON. You can have this in a human readable format right now because you know what the content was about, right? That is the whole process. Now you see the loop over item, because of course that needs to be happening for both of those videos that we said, hey, those are the ones that we go to. So once it's appended, it goes through the second one, and then it just finishes, because we don't have basically a done node. There's nothing it could give out, hey, I'm finished now, but as long as there are items to loop over, it's going to continue. If it's not going to have any new items, it's just going to stop. And basically the next time the schedule trigger runs, it's going to repeat the whole process. So this is it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this process as much as we've enjoyed building it. I think it's a fantastic project to start working on, because you're not getting lost in a lot of shiny objects along the way, and you can really understand a lot of the nitty-gritty details that go into automating workflows with this. Again, because we have so much fun doing these, we've built a whole school community. At the moment, it's free, so join it while it's free and see the whole source files for this if you want to dive into this and if you want to join the discussion and the community around this, because we really want you to succeed as a workflow automation specialist for others, for other small and medium businesses, up to really industry-leading businesses, where you need to have a whole lot of understanding of how to do these setups need to look like in order to be error-proof, even if something goes wrong. We want to make sure that you can see, hey, if things are breaking all the time, I'm probably not finished yet, but how do I get to that next step? That is exactly what we've set up the community to be, right? So join that if you want to dive into this more, and yeah, give us a like and thumbs up if you enjoy the whole process here, and we're gonna see each other again in the next deep dive on another fantastic project. So thank you for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.